and to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
In early August of 1945, tragedy was dropped upon Japan by a B-29 bomber plane named Enola Gay. Little Boy, a powerful uranium bomb, killed over 70,000 Japanese in Hiroshima on August 6th, and 3 days later, Fat Man killed 40,000 instantly. What many people don't realize is the great triumph within the tragedy. This event led to the ending of World War II, a particularly devastating war. Countless people were saved from combat. One of the creators of this incredible weapon, J. Robert Oppenheimer, benefited as well by being awarded the Enrico Fermi Award. Unfortunately, he also lost all moral credibility and will always be thought of by some as the cause of the death and destruction in Japan.
But growing up, his life was full of possibility and innocence. J. Robert Oppenheimer received an excellent education as a result of his parents' extreme wealth. He went to school at many prestigious universities, including Cambridge and Harvard. Years after his schooling was complete, Oppenheimer married Catherine Puning and had 2 children.
2 years after he was married, he became a part of the Manhattan Engineer District, commonly referred to as the Manhattan Project, which was headed by General Leslie Groves. The Manhattan Project was founded to create an atomic weapon. It was approved by President Franklin D. Roosevelt after Vannevar Bush, vice president and dean at MIT, suggested that the U.S. build an atomic bomb before Hitler did. Hitler also had control of most of the world's heavy water, an important nuclear resource, making him even more dangerous and the bomb even more necessary. One summer night, the Oppenheimers invited Edward Teller, a physicist, and his wife over for dinner. Years later, Teller stated that he clearly remembered Oppenheimer saying with absolute conviction that only an atomic bomb could dislodge Hitler from Europe. Evidence points to an original plan to drop the bomb on Europe to achieve this goal. However, America's priorities changed after the attack on Pearl Harbor. This devastation made Japan the largest threat to Americans, so they decided to drop the bombs on Japan instead of Europe. Albert Einstein and other top scientists greatly helped with the science behind the atomic bomb. But when it came time for the bombs to be dropped, Einstein had second thoughts and was known to oppose the use of the bomb against Japan.
The attack on Japan started when Enola Gay approached Hiroshima and dropped Little Boy at 8:15 Japanese time. When the bomb landed, it detonated with a force of 13 kilotons. It took an entire minute before the first shockwave hit the plane, going 1,099 feet per second. After the bombs were dropped in 1945, the government tried to shield the public from the tragedy and show them only the triumph. The president at the time, Harry S. Truman, worked very hard to publicize only the good parts of the bomb. For example, the press releases that he gave only mentioned how good the bomb was for science and the American society. They credited this scientific achievement to Oppenheimer by giving him the Enrico Fermi Award, which is a government-given award. Some people, however, did not support the government's achievement. Many angry letters were written to the president, and a few protests were organized. The government also made short films describing the events of early August. This particular film, made in 1946, sounds like it is straight from an episode of The Twilight Zone, most likely trying to make it seem to the viewers like the tragedy was happening in some other world, and that it didn't matter to Americans.
Just as in the darkness of the desert morning, when the atomic age was born, atomic power puts the question squarely to mankind.
J. Robert Oppenheimer profited considerably from the bomb's existence because he became a well-known physicist, recognized throughout the world as the father of the atomic bomb and as the creator of an extremely powerful and innovative device. He was also credited by many with the ending of World War II. Working on the Manhattan Project and receiving the Enrico Fermi Award made the Oppenheimer family even more financially secure. Overall, Oppenheimer became somewhat of a celebrity, eventually being invited to the White House by President John F. Kennedy and his wife, Jackie.
The atomic bombs were also a huge success in many ways, including their role in ending World War II. For example, they represented a huge scientific advance that has impacted all weapon-related progress from that point on. When the bombs were dropped, many American troops were saved from going to war.
Great Uncle Max had been in Italy and Africa and Italy for several years with the Air Corps. It was called the Air Corps at the time. And once the war was over in Europe, he and a number of other guys were shipped on their way to the South Pacific. And as their ship was approaching the Panama Canal, like within several hours of the Panama Canal, they were told to hold up because the war in Japan was over because of the atomic bomb. And they turned the ship around and headed up to Virginia. And all we knew was that he was heading to Japan Theater. And we were surprised when we got a telephone call from Virginia. He was being discharged in a couple of days, so we were very happy. He arranged for a welcome home party and a wedding.
Although many people attributed the ending of the war to J. Robert Oppenheimer, many others blamed him for the destruction in Japan. He had created this terrible weapon that killed innumerable Japanese and ruined the lives of countless others through radiation poisoning. There's evidence suggesting that after all this, Oppenheimer's life was filled with guilt from what he had done. He was not alone. Other scientists who had contributed to the bomb, including Hans Bethe and Albert Einstein, also expressed guilt. Oppenheimer once told President Truman that he felt he had blood on his hands, and Truman later called him a crybaby scientist, who had come to my office and spent most of his time wringing his hands and telling me they had blood on them because of the discovery of atomic energy.
The tragedy of the atomic bomb was very immense in death, wounds, and after effects. From the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, 140,000 died, and from the bomb dropped on Nagasaki, 74,000 died. Not included in those numbers are the thousands left with long-term disabilities and sicknesses that later caused their death. Radiation poisoning was extremely common for victims of the bomb and left visible and invisible marks. The destruction of the cities themselves was also complete and ruthless.
The atomic bomb left a lasting imprint on the world, and Japanese are still suffering from it. Leukemia and other radiation-induced sicknesses have killed many and are still killing today. Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes, a children's story, is an example of children dying because of leukemia from the bomb's radiation. The book led to a statue being built in memory of all the children, including Sadako Sasaki.
The legacy of these events does not just affect the Japanese and Oppenheimer. The rest of the world was pulled into the arms race, the race to have the biggest and best weapons first. Conflicts are still continuing because of it. The Iraq War was started because of false information about destructive weapons, and feuds with Iran and North Korea were based around possession of atomic power. The science and principle of the atomic bomb has been carried on into other weapons of mass destruction and will never be forgotten. The story of J. Robert Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb is one of triumph and tragedy, both beyond measurement. Oppenheimer will always be remembered as a great man, good and bad, and the dropping of the atomic bomb will always be known as a defining moment in history. Neither will ever be forgotten.
Your wings fly apart, dancing through the